we get started, we do want to give just a special shout out to a few of our sponsors. So we have multiple tiers of sponsorships for people to really get involved and donate to this wonderful cause. So with our highest tier partnership, we want to applaud Sumo Logic and Vivint Solar. So if we could just give a round of applause to both of us. And then we do just have 2 short videos we wanted to share from them. We also have Vivint Solar, and we do also have a few members from Vivint here in the audience as our judges, so if you guys could just give a quick wave. So with their donation alone, we were able to donate 7,500 meals, so we would like them to come up on stage so we can give them this plaque. We do have just a commercial from Vivint as
well. What we're doing at Vivint Solar is much more than creating jobs for people. It's much more than making money. We do all that, but I firmly believe that the product that we offer people makes their life better, and it also makes the world better. And there's not a lot of companies today that actually make the world a better place.
One of our core values at Vivint Solar is leading a revolution. The revolution that we're leading is to change and enable people to live more purposeful and meaningful lives.
You look at a recent study from BP and they say, hey, we're going to be out of fossil fuels, coal specifically, maybe a little over 100 years. And the fact is, it's like, well, that's my kids and grandkids, and what are we actually going to do about that?
Young people want to change the world, and there's a company that's providing the forum for them in a market that is less than 1% penetrated. Think about the opportunities. You can really shape how we look at energy and how energy changes the world.
When there's growth, there's opportunity. We believe in rewarding results. We promote within, we give people a chance to perform and that excel and are the best of the best, an opportunity to take on management roles.
In operations alone, we promote someone every 10 days. And so there's a lot of opportunities for people who are top performers to grow and advance their careers extremely quickly.
You're in a great place. We have over 50 offices around the country, and we're growing all the time. So if you want to travel, if you want to move around the country, it's a great place for you.
One of the fun things about working for Vivint Solar is the culture that we have here.
It's a fun environment. Everyone enjoys working here. It's very upbeat. It's super exciting to be a part of. And I think it's because everyone comes to work with something bigger in mind.
It's a culture that works really hard, but also knows how to recreate and play really hard. And so people that have been successful in the past and are successful today are people that know how to balance that dynamic.
Every single person is completely different. That's what we look for when we recruit people. We want to see what can someone do to help us grow and how we can also help them grow within their lives.
The type of person who works at Vivint Solar are the type of individuals who want to not just be an individual contributor, but they want to look at the big picture and see how best they can maximize every single person's potential. Right now, we have an amazing opportunity in being a part of Vivint Solar, where we get to kind of shape the industry. We get to create the type of culture that we want to have, not just today, but years from now. And that's a very exciting and very real opportunity that everyone gets to participate in as they join Vivint Solar.
Vivint Solar is hands down one of the best companies to work for. Everybody's ideas are welcomed.
How often do you have the opportunity to work somewhere that will change your career trajectory, but you also get to change the world in the process?
If you're just looking for a job, this is not the right spot for you. It's easy to get a job. It's hard to find a company where you're completely changing the way that things are happening in the world. We're hiring people that want to lead a revolution, people that want to take an old world model that's destroying the earth and turn it on its ear. If somebody says you can't do something, we want to hire people that say, shut up and get out of the way. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Talk a little bit more about what HapCap is, we have Damon.
All right, good evening everyone. How you doing tonight? Good. All right, yeah, energy, I like it. All right, so first of all, I'm going to start by thanking you for inviting me to come out and talk to you guys again. I was actually here last year. All the proceeds from Schey Talks went out and supported us as well. And I have to say, Schey Talks last year was absolutely outstanding. I'm actually kind of disappointed I can't stick around this year. I have to catch a flight to Utah tomorrow morning, 6:30. It's going to be a thing. But one thing I wanted to say is that, last year was great because I still think back on some of the talks that the people gave there. And I don't know why it sticks in my brain, but specifically the guy who was talking about what he learned going door to door selling Dish TV for an entire summer. It was a great talk. And one of my hopes from tonight is kind of like that. Something I'll say will stick with you guys. We're in the hunger relief business, so we measure success in a few different ways. And if at any point in the future someone thinks back to something I said tonight, writes a check to their local food pantry, or writes a check to their local food bank, that to me is success. So, before we get going though, I also want to go ahead and thank the Schey Sales Center. You guys make this possible. It's an absolutely wonderful resource for us. My name is David Keller. As I said, I'm the development coordinator for Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, and specifically their food and nutrition division, the Southeast Ohio Food Bank and Regional Kitchen. Real quick show of hands, I don't want to get too off track, that's why I have the paper here. How many people have heard of Meals on Wheels? Yeah, so Meals on Wheels in Athens County and in Hocking County are provided by HapCap. So that's where some of your guys' donations are going. They're going to help our entire mission. Now, the cool thing about HapCap, and that stands for Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, I'll give you guys wait here. One of the cool things about HapCap is our mission is not only alleviating the hardships of poverty, but it is also empowering individuals with the resources and the supplies that they need to break the cycle of poverty that grips so many of our communities. So you guys are you're supporting a great cause. Now, that sounds nice, but let's get into specifics. So, at the food bank, our network is on the front lines of providing emergency food assistance to the people that need it most. Last year, on average, we served 14,000 households each and every month. Now, real quick, one of the things I want you guys to take away from tonight is that the need is real, and because of outstanding organizations like The sales center, you guys coming out tonight, you're helping us meet that need. Now, people here, are you guys from Athens for the most part? You've been here for over a year? Anyone familiar with Tremble Township? Yeah? What about Nelsonville York School District? Anyone here? Ring any bells? Yeah, a couple people? Awesome. So those two areas are about 15 minutes away from here and have the highest rates of childhood food insecurity in the entire region that we serve. We serve a 10-county region in southeast Ohio, so when I'm telling you that the need is real and is right outside, I'm not exaggerating. Now, real quick though, I want to keep it positive, and I want to go back and talk about how you guys, through coming here tonight, the wonderful sponsors who are coming out supporting this event, are making a difference. So I can go into all the different programs and initiatives that we have at the food bank to fight hunger. Henry came in, took a tour. He can vouch for that. I talked to Zero for about 45 minutes on it. Tonight, I'm just going to stick with one of the things that we do because it kind of typifies our work. So for $1,000 sponsorship, we will load up one of our trucks with roughly 18,000 pounds of food and host a mobile food distribution for up to 200 families in the community of the sponsor's choice. Now, I can see some of the people looking around to kind of think about those numbers. What that breaks out to be is about 90 pounds per family for roughly 5 cents a pound. Now, real quick, do you think we can acquire that food? Anyone here in business, transportation, logistics? When I say acquire that food, some of it's delivered, but a lot of it we got to go pick up from places like Columbus. We got to go to Cincinnati. We got to go to Akron. So do you think that we can acquire that food, store it in our facility, transport it up to 2 hours away and pay our staff only charging 5 cents a pound for that sponsorship? Heck no. And that's where you guys come in, and that's what you guys are making possible. So it's only possible because of donors like you. And again, that's just one example. There are hundreds of ways that your donations are going to help. That's just the food bank. That's just our mobile food distributions. That's not even getting into what we were talking about earlier with Meals on Wheels. Now again, that's just one of the things that we do through direct service. I'm going to get into some numbers here about what you guys are making possible. But before I do that, I want to shout out the agencies that make it possible. So we have over 100 to 130 member agencies that are affiliated with the Southeast Ohio Food Bank, depending on the time of year. Summertime, we know kids aren't going to school. We ramp up our summer feeding services to provide those free and reduced lunches throughout Athens, Hocking, Perry, Gallia, and sometimes Meigs County. Now, what that means is that all of us working together, it's meeting the need. It's the donors, it's the food bank, and all of our member agencies. So in 2018, we connected over 6 million pounds of food to communities across Southeast Ohio. Our network fed roughly 26,000 people on average each month through all the programs that we offer. What that breaks down to in meals is about 5 million meals to the people that needed it most throughout Southeast Ohio. We couldn't do it without a couple different people. First of all, our volunteers. You guys gave me a stage. I got to make a plug. We need volunteers. We need people getting engaged to provide the services that we offer. So if any of you ever see anything about coming up to Logan on a Saturday morning, helping us pack senior boxes, those senior boxes are going to go out to over 3,500 seniors throughout Southeast Ohio. We need volunteers to help us. So that's one way to get involved. But also, we could not do it without outstanding donors like you. So real quick, can I have people raise hands who either are a sponsor, sold tickets, bought a ticket, or in any other way contributed money to this event tonight? So you guys just coming here, listening to some great talks. You're helping fight hunger in Southeast Ohio. So good job. I want to give you guys a round of applause. So again, and you know, I kind of high energy and I go off stage a little bit, but I want to make this very clear. Thank you for your support. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we're accomplishing together. You guys are going to have a fantastic evening. Like I said, this is a great event. We are honored to be the recipients from this event. Henry and I know Scott both have my contact information. If you guys ever interested in volunteering, you want to get involved, please go ahead and let either of them know. They'll be happy to get in contact with me. You can also find us on Facebook, SEO Food Bank, and you can also go to our website, seofoodbank.org. Thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to get started. I'd like to invite up Jackie. Close your eyes. Go.
and take a moment to think about something that you are truly afraid of. Whether that's heights, conflict at work, spiders, or even public speaking. Think about the last time that you faced this fear and how it made you feel. I can see some of you kind of squirming in your seats already. Go ahead and open your eyes. So imagine feeling that exact feeling, heart beating faster, palms a little sweaty, every single day for a full month. Complete torture, right? Wrong. Welcome to my TED Talk. So at the end of January, I realized that I had all of these huge fears looming over me, whether that's graduation, moving 7 hours away from home, finding a place to live, or starting my first career. Big fears, all within the next few months. So I asked a group of friends for some advice on how to deal with this fear. And they told me about a 30-day fear challenge. So a 30-day fear challenge is when you do one thing every day that scares you, pushes you outside of your comfort zone, or that you really wanted to do, but you've just been putting off. So when I first heard of this idea, I had alternating waves of excitement and fear wash over me, but I got it completely stuck in my head. I was determined to face 30 crazy days of challenges, like the ones that you see up here, in order to expand my comfort zone. So today I'm going to tell you a few of the lessons that I learned and some of the challenges that I faced during this time. During this time, I actually got my ears pierced, peered over the edge of a 6-story building, faced real ghosts at the ridges after dark, and figurative ghosts by contacting my high school bully. But those aren't the fears that I will discuss today. Instead, I'm going to focus on the fears that I learned the most lessons from, including donating blood, taking a jiu-jitsu class, seeing a psychic in New Orleans, and finally, doing spoken word poetry at an open mic night. So for my first fear, I donated blood. Not only am I terrified of needles and avoid shots every time I get the chance, but I'm also terrified of blood too. I've always been extremely squeamish and felt like I would pass out when I saw an injury in person or a sharp object coming towards me. So I wanted to start my fear challenge with something that would pick me up and put me outside of my comfort zone. So I realized that I tend to avoid the source of my fear whenever I'm afraid of something. So naturally, I showed up a few minutes late for my appointment. They asked me questions, they pricked my finger to test my blood, and they sat me down on a bed to start the donation. Luckily, I had 3 of my sorority sisters come out to support me. One held my hand, one distracted me, and the other donated blood in solidarity. So what I learned from this is that you can't your fears will not seek you out to conquer them. You have to put yourself into uncomfortable situations or have accountability partners like my sorority sisters. In fact, the American Society of Training and Development shows that you have a 65% chance of accomplishing a goal if you commit to another person. And that chance goes up to a 95% chance if you have regular check-ins. Your accountability partners will push you into uncomfortable situations because they know that your need to grow and change is more important than the fear that is holding you back. Think about that fear that you pictured at the beginning of this speech. Now try to think of an accountability partner who will help you conquer it, whether that's a friend, a significant other, or a mentor. No matter who it is, you will be one step closer to conquering that fear if you involve someone else along the way. Now my second fear that I'm going to discuss today tested both my physical and emotional limits. I decided to take a jiu-jitsu class, alone on Valentine's Day. So originally some friends were gonna come with me to this jiu-jitsu class, but plans fell through and I awkwardly showed up by myself. Thanks, accountability partners. So I showed up and many people brought partners because it was Valentine's Day, and I was paired up with a stranger and by the end of warm-ups, I looked like a sweaty tomato and I was considering finding an oxygen machine. But I wasn't gonna back down just because I was being pushed physically. I was also being pushed mentally to face my fear of social awkwardness when being forced to do physical exercises with a complete stranger. But I'm not alone in this fear. In fact, 15 million people in the last year alone in the US reported feeling anxiety in social situations where they were exposed to unfamiliar people or possible scrutiny from others. So although I attended this class alone, I was not alone in my fear of embarrassing myself physically in front of strangers. This also reinforced the fact that having a support system or accountability partners helps you to face these fears a lot easier. But it also showed me that I was strong enough to face my fear alone. And sometimes you're going to have to. And if I'm strong enough, all of you are definitely strong enough. So towards the end of my fear challenge, I faced somewhat of a sillier fear by going to see a psychic in New Orleans. So I'm a very practical person, and I had never dabbled in the realm of psychics at all, but my friends kept insisting that sometimes psychics can be scarily accurate, so I knew I had to try it at least once in my life. So I show up and she picks 2 decks of tarot cards and pushes them out into the shape of a tree, as you see here, and told me what the next 6 months to a year of my life is going to look like. So the scariest part of this reading was when she picked up one card and goes, "This card shows that in the last month of your life, you have been facing and conquering fears with strength." On the nose. But her main key takeaway from my reading was that I need to stop doubting and worrying about my future and instead trust myself and trust the path that I've put myself on. So what I learned from this is that I need to continue to expand my boundaries when it comes to things that I don't understand or necessarily believe in. And while I still don't believe that psychics have real powers, I know that this reading was more of a tool for reflection. And I really left feeling extremely empowered about my future. So I also realize how people can get into a rut because we tend to seek out actions and people that confirm our beliefs instead of challenge them. In fact, there's a thing called confirmation bias. It's a psychology principle that you actually seek out and favor information that confirms your existing beliefs. So without this challenge, I would not have taken the necessary time to reflect or to expose myself to differing viewpoints. But it doesn't have to be tarot cards in New Orleans for you to take that time. There are plenty of apps like Headspace that help guide you through meditation or mindfulness in order for you to reflect, increase your focus, and stress less. As for differing viewpoints, read news articles from different sources, or just be aware of your biases and how they might be affecting your thoughts, your fears, and your actions. Now, the last fear that I'm going to talk about today, I wrote my very own love poem and presented it at an open mic night where that person was sitting right in front of me in the audience. Terrifying. So, I had always really admired poets, people who take their emotions and put them into stories to tell the whole world. I would stay up late at night watching spoken word poetry, imagining one day that I would have the courage to get up on stage and tell my own stories. But my fear kept holding me back. Franklin D. Roosevelt says that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. My why, my desire to perform a piece of me and to be creative became more important than that fear. And luckily, at the end, I got a round of applause, and I had friends come up to me and say that I had inspired them to go confess their love to the people around them. So even though this poem was written for someone special in the audience, the performance of the poem was just for me. And I know that I will be following this passion after school, not full time, but it's a passion. And that's because I realized that I could be something that I never knew I could be, inspiring. Now, facing each one of these fears has taught me and made me reflect on why I let each one of them limit me or determine a behavior in my life. Through facing these fears, I've expanded my comfort zone and I have found a self-confidence that I didn't know existed. Through donating blood, I realized how much of a support system I actually have. But like with my jiu-jitsu class, I realized that sometimes you have to face your fears alone, and I know now that I'm strong enough to do that. Through expanding your comfort zone, you have to seek out your fears and differing viewpoints, even if those come from a psychic. And now that I've done spoken word poetry and realized that as long as my why is bigger than my fear, I can conquer any fear that I set myself up for. And it's as long as I do it one day at a time. So I ask each of you not to face 30 days of fear, but face just one day, and that will lead to another. Thank you.
All right, we'd now like to announce Emily Deering. Thank you. So again, my name is Emily Deering. I'm a senior accounting major and team captain of the cross country and track and field team. I would like to quickly give a brief trigger warning. If anyone here has had to experience mental illness, specifically suicide or self-harm, indirectly or by someone you know, first and foremost, please do not offend me at all. I encourage you to step out and do what you need to do. So for the past 4 years, I have been an advocate for something that I feel extremely passionate about. This topic is suicide, specifically suicide and self-harm. And for the next 10 minutes, I would like to talk with you all about some statistics and some personal stories about how suicide and self-harm have found their way into my life. Now, mental illness is not the flu. It's not something you can cure with ibuprofen, a magic elixir or superfood or workout that is going to save my life if I decide tomorrow that I don't want to be around anymore. And for those of you that have had similar experiences, or you know someone who has, you know that you're going to remember those experiences for as long as you breathe. Now, for those of you that don't know, we're currently facing a national epidemic that's the second leading cause of death in young people. That's suicide. Nearly 1 in 5 young people will think about it, high school to college age, and 14 of every 100,000 will go through with it each year. Now, to put that into perspective, that equates to roughly 3 Ohio University students losing their lives to suicide each year. And if you think that's shocking, I encourage you to do a Google search on the number of Ohio University students who have lost their lives from January 1st to today. It's over 3. So, perfect. The first thing that I would like to talk about was like March 14th, 2014. And I was sitting in a high school Spanish class as a junior. It was about 11 a.m. when my high school principal walked into the room. And it was about 2 weeks after my former basketball coach had been diagnosed, had been admitted into hospice following a brutal battle with cancer. Now I want everyone in the room to remember the first person, coach, mentor that told you you were gonna be great. You, me, Emily Deering, was going to be something special. This individual for me was Coach Maley. Coach Maley taught me discipline, commitment, and hard work. He was the first individual to tell me that I was going to be a Division I runner. Now, I both was admiring and was terrified by this man who has sent me doing more push-ups and laps than my Division I cross-country coach. Now, I remember back to that day, and my principal walked into class, and I could see that his smile was fake. His forced, relaxed tone of voice was obvious.
Now, Coach was a prominent figure in my community and in my high school, and he had a daughter who was considered a child prodigy in basketball, a year below me. But if my intuition was correct, this was much too soon. The last few weeks had been tough for him. This was much too soon. Coach Maley was the individual who first told me, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up and the results will come. And at the time I'd been frustrated, but I just didn't know, although he sure did. I just hadn't found the right sport yet. Now later that afternoon, I would come to find out that in a final act of autonomy, my coach had taken his own life and refused to let the cancer beat him. And despite my overwhelming sadness, I could at least find some form of coping mechanism of why he had taken himself from us so soon, but unfortunately, that's not usually the case. A little bit closer, October 5th, 2014, I was sitting in a business administration class with Joan Murphy, and right in the front row, go figure, and I received a call from my dad. And it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and my dad's a high school teacher, so I was like, it's a little odd. But then he called me again, and he called me again, and he called me a third time. I don't know about you, but I can still feel my stomach dropping. So I knew something was wrong. So I got up and I walked out of the classroom, and I got outside and I answered my phone, and my father proceeded to inform me that my high school cross-country coach's son, who is also my friend, coworker, and fellow student athlete, had committed suicide that morning. And he wanted to tell me before I saw it on social media. Hayden Long was a straight A student and actively involved in my community. There was no warning. Hayden's death rocked my entire community. All I remember is trying not to hyperventilate through sobs as I walked back down the Richland Bridge to my dorm room, confused, not really sure where to go from there. What do you do when you hear that kind of news? Hayden's death again rocked my entire community and exposed hundreds of young people to the ugliest face of mental illness. And friends in this room, please know that I am sparing you the gruesome, horrible details that my high school peers and myself were not spared, especially in a small town. A little bit closer, January 2018, I received a series of texts around 11 o'clock at night warning me that one of my teammates was actively considering suicide. Unfortunately, this wasn't the first time I'd heard news like this, so I called my team captain and my coach, and we immediately went to this athlete's aid, and we made sure that she was safe and that she was supported, and then we contacted athletic support staff. And after about an hour of conversation, athletic support staff's answer boiled down to a factor of immediate danger. Put simply, if the athlete was not in immediate danger, there was nothing athletic support staff could do. I remember feeling probably the most angry I've ever felt in my entire life. Anyone self-harming is an immediate danger. Anyone with suicidal thoughts is an immediate danger. And if the policy is truly immediate danger, I feared if there's a next time, and there will be a next time, the resulting outcome may not be a happy one. Now, Bobcats in the room, employers, I implore you, please put yourself in my shoes, in my coach's shoes. What do you do at 11 o'clock at night when you're laying in bed next to your pet or significant other in your pajamas and you receive a series of texts telling you that someone you care deeply about is considering ending their life? Do you have a policy in place for that? Have you thought about it? Have you talked about it? I know I sure hadn't. Support your friends, coworkers, professors, anyone when they reach out to you for help. Understand that an outward expression of forced happiness does not constitute genuine happiness. And again, mental illness is just like the flu or asthma or, I don't know, sprained ankles in such a way that some people are just overcome with it more easily than others. And understand that sometimes choosing happiness on your own just isn't an option. And if you are the one struggling, I would really like to make eye contact with everyone in the room. If you are the one struggling right now, please know, you are not alone. This time will pass, and you will grow stronger because of it. Please, step up, speak up, get help, And in doing so, you will empower others with the bravery and the courage to do the same. At Ohio University alone, I'm really excited to tell you that thanks to the dedicated efforts of a few Bobcat student athletes and our amazing Bobcat Athletic Administration, student athletes now have access to a specialized clinical psychologist, Dr. Michelle Pride, who's embedded in counseling and psychological services. And I'm even happier to report that Dr. Pride is so overwhelmed with appointments that athletic support staff, without even hitting the full 12-month cycle, they're considering adding another position or increasing her to full-time. And a quick note about when it's acceptable or preferred to go see a mental health support specialist. I feel like we have a misconception in society of when we think it's a good time to go. We associate mental health support with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, etc. But if by the time you're starting to think those things, that's when you're choosing to go see and go talk to someone, you've been miserable for a long time. Mental health support is especially for those big transition, decision-making times in our lives. High school to college, college to the workforce. I mean, I think pretty much everyone in this room can relate to a 3 a.m. windowless Alden study room in the middle of cluster with an empty pizza box on the floor, arguing with 5 people you barely know about a topic you've only had for a week. It's extremely stressful, and it's funny now, but it wasn't funny then, I remember. Or you're in Nelson on your 4th Nelson hamburger, and I guarantee you it's not what you need, at least not from Nelson. But all of those things add up into one big stress ball of horribleness. And it metastasizes in lots of different ways. But please, go talk to someone. These times in our lives are pivotal and they're stressful, but they're also supposed to be the most special times of our lives. Conversations like this are essential to the longevity and to the legitimization of this conversation. As the leaders of our respective communities, classrooms, careers, it's on us to speak up and speak out about mental health awareness as often as we can and to everyone that'll listen. This issue is not segregated to Ohio University, to any one career field, or any one specific type of person. Neither are the solutions. We are all capable of supporting each other and finding solutions. Anyone can ask, are you feeling overwhelmed today? What can I do to support you today? And you can make a difference in their entire day. And quite frankly, I'm not exaggerating. You can make the difference in their entire life. And today I feel like in a world that's so flooded with social media garbage of deceit and hate and inadequacy, we can all benefit from knowing that someone else genuinely cares how we're doing today. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Together we can make a difference.